Our guest is David W. Solomons, and we're going to backtrack just a little bit and play a piece that we wrapped up with last time, which was 2 weeks ago. So this will get us back in the spirit of David W. Solomons. This is his...
Just before we go back... We should note, if he is listening...
Yes.
He sent us some defective jewel boxes. The jewel boxes are in bits.
The post.
It wasn't
defectified.
I don't know that was the post. I think it may have been from its manufacturer. Can he send more? Just the jewel boxes.
Just the jewel boxes.
Yes, yes.
A crate of jewel boxes, please.
Please. Thank you.
David W. Solomons, Lost in Microtones. Lost in Microtones, David W. Solomons.
And I should correct.
What?
I misspoke because he is here and he will be speaking to us shortly, and he has promised a whole box of fresh new jewel boxes.
A crate.
A crate, yes.
A crate of boxes.
As soon as he gets home. That's generous.
Yes, David W. Solomons. We're going to hear one of those sort of unexpected things, a situation in which your voice and a female voice are singing together in a rather interesting juxtaposition. It's not exactly what you'd expect with your voice higher than the female voice. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I suppose it's all part of my non-conformist nature. I refuse to identify as male, and I think it's particularly funny that I look male, and yet I can sing higher than quite a few females. In fact, my current girlfriend sings a lot lower than I do. And this Margaret Jackson-Roberts, who sang in the What Can We Poor Females Do, also sang with me in Rosa Divina, and there she was the baritone, and that was particularly interesting because I also did a recording with a male baritone, and there are those who can't tell the difference between the two. They wouldn't be able to tell you which was a male and which was a female baritone. I think it's always a good idea to mix the sexes. It gives a more enlightened outlook in the end.
Yeah, well, we may get on to this.
Yes. Let's hear the mixing of the sexes. This is Rosa Divina. I forget, I don't think this is one of David W. Solomon's own. I think this is an earlier piece. But anyway, he's on top, she's on the bottom.
Yes.
Rosa divina che in gentil cultura
Rosa divina che in gentil cultura contum fragrante sutilezza Magisterio purpureo, magisterio en la belleza nevada enseñanza nevada a la arquitectura, ejemplo de la vana gentileza, en cuyo ser unio natural. qualcuno allegre e triste sepultura quam altiva entu pompa premusida soberbia
el riesgo de morir desdeñas con tu fragrante sutilezza y luego desmayado y encogido de tu caduco sedas mustias señas con que conducta muerte necia vida viviendo engañas muriendo enseñas. Rosa divina que en gentil cultura Rosa divina que en gentil cultura eres con tu fragrante
Oh, Rosa Divina, one of yours actually, and
missionary position music.
Yeah, well, inverted.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and an interesting question that brings up because we're about to play "When I'm Laid in Earth," the famous ground from Dido and Aeneas, and I want to know what this deal is with these early pieces and what can't be said. Or what you think you're saying that isn't already said in the original. It's a little sort of strange to rearrange yet again one of these pieces.
Well, I like the tune, and I thought it'd be nice to have a performance of it for alto, so I transposed it accordingly. Unfortunately, of course, I didn't have the instruments for it, so you've got a sort of tromba marina sound instead of a cello.
I see.
But I think it works quite nicely.
Well,
and as I say, why should the sopranos have all the best tunes? Mind you, having said that, since then I've done a public performance in which I was the sorceress in Dido and Aeneas, and I was quite pleased with doing that. Next year, joy of joys, I'm going to be second witch, which involves me rising above the treble clef, which should be quite interesting.
Here it is, your rendition of "When I Am Laid in Earth" from Dido and Aeneas. when I am laid in rest.
There's the Carruthers effect again.
Yes.
I've heard that piece before.
Yes, you have. From Dido and Aeneas, sung by our guest today, David W. Solomons. Let's turn to practical matters. You were one of the originators and still one of the people running La Musique Petite. It's an interesting concept. What was the genesis about La Musique Petite and your relationship to it now and how it influenced composers, you or others, etc.?
La Musique Petite was founded, I believe, by Peter Shaffer in America, and it was through La Musique Petite that I first got some of my music onto the internet before I had my own website even. So I have a soft spot for it, and I've always enjoyed discussing with other composers some of the ideas behind the music, behind the techniques of composing. Being MIDI-based, of course, you don't get the actual sounds the composer intends unless you've got the same synthesizer as they have. So I suppose now that downloading is quicker, particularly in America with the ADSL methods, it's more likely that people will compare their styles by listening to each other's MP3 files or real audio files. But I imagine there'll still be people who will want to listen to MIDI files if they've got good enough synthesizers, so La Musique Petite will probably continue for a few more years at least. So it was a couple of years ago that Peter Shaffer announced that he didn't have any more time to host it, so I offered to host the live show, as it were, and a friend of ours in Brazil, José Marquez, offered to host the archives. Eventually the archives also came over onto my site because José didn't have any more space or time or whatever it was. I've had quite a lot of interesting influences myself from the various compositions and some of the various ideas from the composers, and it's been interesting to compare the earlier versions of some of the up-and-coming composers with their later music to see the progress they've made, some of them by undergoing actual training, which is of course something that I never really did. So I think I'll continue hosting it until nobody bothers sending any more files. Some of the subjects have been more popular than others, obviously. The fugues subject has been particularly interesting. There have been a lot of ideas in fugal form from various different styles, right from the Baroque through to the relatively modern, although I wouldn't necessarily say hard-edged. Of course, in line with modern developments, La Musique Petite also has its own station on MP3.com, assuming MP3.com continues. So the music can be heard in the form the composers have heard it themselves, if not in their mind, at least on their own synthesizers.
Yeah.
Well, I submitted a couple of pieces to the La Musique Petite, actually. We played one on the show called Jetlu. That was originally written for La Musique Petite. Let's get back to your music. We're going to listen to Landscape Before Sunrise. Your music is often light, but this piece is dark, and I was wondering about the darkness, that maybe there's something hiding in your music that's maybe like an imminent sunrise as in this piece. What's up with that? What's on your mind?
Landscape Before Sunrise began a few hours before the actual rising of the sun, where I was looking out of the window of my 18th floor in Denning Point in London, overlooking Mile End in the East End of London, and thinking of all the different languages which people were speaking over that expanse. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to do a song which said good night to all of them in each of their languages? To be honest, I don't think I included the main one, which is Bengali, but never mind. So it sort of started.
Good night, buonanotte, gute Nacht, Kali nicht da. Oia sumina sai nosta. Bonanit laachar good night, one.
And so on and so forth with all the languages I could muster, using the dictionaries from all the shelves on Whitechapel Library shelves. And then the idea came to me to write a piece for recorder orchestra, and I thought that this theme would be quite nice to include. So I decided to go a few hours into the future from good night to just before dawn, and called it Landscape Before Sunrise, but the view is still overlooking Mile End just before the sun comes up like thunder over the landscape, over the cityscape. Actually, there may also be a dim distant memory of the great storms of October 1997 which we had, which were quite frightening. When I was on the 18th floor, you could actually feel the buildings sway with the winds. And of course, the power stations all went out of commission. So instead of the usual orange glow you get over a city, it was all grey.
Not in Vermont.
It really did make a difference.
Well, yes, I'm sure.
No orange glows in Vermont. Let's listen to it. Here it is, David W. Solomons, Landscape Before Sunrise. Landscape Before Sunrise, David W. Solomons. Dark, they say.
I guess so.
Next, nursery rhymes. Everybody is doing nursery rhymes.
David L. Tredici and now David L.
Solomons. Actually, yeah, I was thinking of Jane Siberry, too. You know, she was doing them. And I guess even as far as back as 15 years ago, we had people like Sting doing Peter and the Wolf narrations. So, I mean, there's this new... we're all child-centric now. So what is it with nursery rhymes? Tell us about that.
All the time I was in London, about 12 years, I didn't really have any contact with children, so I don't have any particular connection with the early years, as it were. And of course, being sterile, I don't have any likelihood of being father either. So when my sister suddenly announced that she was going to produce and that I was going to be an uncle, I thought, well, this is an ideal opportunity to flex those particular muscles on the composing side and create some arrangements of nursery rhymes, especially for little Roxanne, as she was going to be called. I don't actually know her reactions to the pieces. She never actually said anything. So maybe she was a bit put off by the bitonality in Baa Baa Black Sheep.
Well,
the bitonality.
Okay, David. Here it is. We're going to hear nursery rhyme for a cat to start this one off. We're going to be tight on time, so we'll just listen to this one of the nursery rhymes. Here it is. Nursery rhyme for a cat. David W. Solomons.
I love little pussy. Her coat is so warm, and if I don't hurt her, she'll do me no harm.
Well, there's time to hear that Baa Baa Black Sheep anyway.
I want to hear this bitonality from the sterile composer.
You're not nice. Well, all right.
Baa
Here we go.
Baa.
Baa Baa Black Sheep. Here it is. David W. Solomons.
Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. 1 for the master and 1 for the dame, and 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Have you any Baa Baa Black Sheep? Have you any wool? Oh, have you any wool? Oh, Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. 1 for the master and 1 for the dame, and 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane.
It's pushing bitonality.
Pushing bitonality. David W. Solomons. 2 nursery rhymes. Let's ask you a question about some.
Get over here. Stop. Get back in this room. Stop walking away all the time. You can go back. You can go out there later. Just get back here.
Old texts. We have nursery rhymes. We have old styles and all sorts of stuff. And now we have Shakespearean texts. Where are your modern texts? Are you committed to mirror the past in choices of text tonalities? And what does this say to the listener today?
I think the old poets have still quite a lot to say to people of current generations. I don't see why not. Same goes with music of all styles. And of course, modern composers often set old poets to styles which the poets wouldn't recognize as music necessarily, or as pleasant music at least. In particular, I think of a choral piece that I've done based on George Herbert's Prayer to the Holy Spirit, Litany to the Holy Spirit, I should say, which I've yet to find a choir who can sing. It would be rather interesting to hear the version finally. But as you can imagine from what I've just said, the main difficulty with using modern poets is that of copyright. And, you know, although I've managed to get copyright permission for the likes of Jacques Prévert, I haven't for Supervielle and Éluard and people like that who are still in the public domain. So I've had to either create my own words, like I did in Dawn in the Room or My Love, or I've had to make them into instrumental pieces, as I've done, for example, with Isabel's Sniffle by Ogden Nash, which I turned into an orchestral extravaganza.
Well, let's listen to...
We need to hear that.
Well, we won't. We're going to hear instead the text, Be Not Afear'd.
Text by?
The board.
Oh, fine.
Be not afeard, the isle is full of noises, sounds and sweet airs that give delight, and hurt not. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about mine ears, and sometimes voices that, if I then had waked after long sleep, will make me sleep again. And then in dreaming, the clouds methought would open, and show riches ready to drop upon me, that when I waked, I cried to dream again.
Be Not Afear'd by David W. Solomons. Let's look at another small form, and a small form brought large. We're going to hear Spanish Extravaganza. What is this about small forms and how they work for you?
The story behind Spanish Extravaganza is quite unusual. There were a group of us in Skelmersdale who wanted to do a performance to end our concert involving everybody who'd performed in the concert. So you got brass players and singers and guitarists and woodwind players. So I thought, well, perhaps I'll compose something in Spanish style, let the brass players have their own way and interrupt at various important points with strange cadences that don't fit in with the rest of the music. And what shall I give the singers? Well, I'll have to give the singers some words, obviously, and they'll have to be in Spanish. So I looked in the book of English madrigals, obviously, and found All Creatures Now Are Merry, Merry Minded, and thought, oh, that will work in Spanish. So we ended up singing, Ahora todas las criaturas son das Pascuas, or sounds to that effect. And the whole thing was a wonderful hair-letting down experience, not particularly sophisticated in its execution, but great fun. And of course this version is an orchestrated realization using the MIDI system that I've got. One day we'll do a proper performance, maybe.
Nobody expects the Spanish extravaganza.
Here it is, the improper MIDI version. Odd little ending there.
Like the cicadas.
Spanish Inquisition extravaganza.
Nobody expects this Spanish exposition.
Exposition.
Explanation.
David W. Solomons, we have a different one coming up now. We have a piece called Prayer to the Virgin, and in your notes to this, you talk about how it is whole tones and how there's such a, as you say, devotional effect caused by the whole tones. Is that just marketing, or is that real?
Audrey Vaughan's poem, Prayer to the Virgin, certainly lent itself very well to the whole tone treatment, and I haven't used whole tone much in my music, but the way it works, certainly I think the whole tones do enhance the effect simply because of their way of floating around without a tonal root, if you like. It's very difficult to express it in terms that would be acceptable to those who've studied composition on a serious level, but it just seems right to me, and I do feel it's possibly one of my most devotional pieces in any case. So I thought, well, what's the reason for that? And then I thought, well, I suppose the fact that it's in that particular mode, if you can call it a mode, of whole tones. But I'm glad you like the piece. It's certainly one of my favourites, and one day I shall get a professional recording done, I hope.
Oh, gentle lady of the stone, oh, gentle ladies who bore the sun, who bore the sun.
Prayer to the Virgins, David W. Solomons. We're having a piece called Malgré Moi coming up next, and it sounds occasionally like one of those interwoven Renaissance tunes like Fies Marie or one of those. Is this deliberate, especially with the early modern text? And what do you say to that? It's a really successful miniature.
Well, it certainly wasn't intended to sound Renaissance. I must say it's just pure coincidence that that's the way my mind was working at the time. Certainly, I suppose, when I reached the stage of the words where it said autre chose, the other thing is what I want and what I will do, then I go into a chord which you certainly won't find in the Renaissance, and which I don't even know what to call. So I suppose in order to lead up to it, you need a rather more old-fashioned way of composing to make the distinction all the more stark, if you pardon the expression.
Embauché malgré moi dans les inégalités, j'ai refusé de pointer les inégalités, m'obliger de pointer dans la mer des idées, m'obliger déserté, dans la mer j'ai déserté, embauché malgré moi dans les inégalités, j'ai refusé de pointer les inégalités. M'obliger de pointer dans la mer des idées, m'obliger déserté, dans la mer j'ai déserté. Je n'ai jamais compris grand chose. Je n'ai jamais compris grand chose. Il n'y a jamais grand chose, ni petite chose, ni petite chose. Il n'y a jamais grand chose, ni petite chose, ni petite chose. Il y a autre chose, il y a autre chose, il y a autre chose. Embauché malgré moi dans les inégalités, j'ai refusé de pointer dans les inégalités, j'ai refusé de pointer dans la mer des idées, j'ai déserté, dans la mer j'ai déserté. Je n'ai jamais compris grand chose. Je n'ai jamais compris grand chose. Il n'y a jamais grand chose, ni petite chose, ni petite chose. Il n'y a jamais grand chose, ni petite chose, ni petite chose. Il y a autre chose, 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 autre chose. C'est ce que j'aime et qui me plaît, mais qui me plaît et que je fais. Embauché malgré, 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 malgré.
What you can do with technology.
I guess so.
Malgré moi, David W. Solomons there on the voices and all the other parts. You were going to ask him about his clothes, but he was reluctant to talk about them. You can go to his website
and look at his clothing.
Yes.
Singular clothing.
Let's go to an impressionist modernist piece. I mean, just from one style to another to another. Impressionist modernist?
Yeah, what is this?
Details has a very strange history. It started off because when I was at college, somebody got the wrong end of the stick in a conversation and was under the impression that I was after their body. And this person was a violinist. And when we eventually worked out that what the problem was between us and that he'd made the wrong assumptions, I decided to write a piece for us to play for violin and guitar called Details, because all that was details, we'll put that behind us and carry on with our music making. And the piece worked quite nicely for guitar and violin, and when I got the opportunity to write a piece for wind quintet through the Northwest Composers Association, I thought, well, that would be a nice theme to expand and use for wind quintet, with the same idea of, well, let's not bother about all these details about social niceties and so on. Let's just get on with music making, let's leave the mere details behind. And I feel that the whole thing is a shrug of the shoulder and a sort of, oh, never mind all that, and a quick flick of the wrist in a properly camp fashion.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Details, music by David W. Solomons. Well, we won't have time for much more opportunity to talk and describe, so we'll hear one more piece. This will be the variations on Du schöne Lebensbaum, not Lebensraum, Lebensbaum. And this is powerful and different, and so as a final question, why is this different? Why, compared to all of the other pieces, how did this one get in here?
Well, I've known the organist Burkhard Mohr, who currently plays in Wiesbaden, since about 1969, and our composing techniques have always been different, in that mine has been always in the direction of the classical, and his has always been in the direction of the avant-garde. So I was quite surprised when he asked me to write a piece specially for him to play, based on the old hymn tune Du schöne Lebensbaum. So I thought, well, I'll try to do something in the direction of his style, just to see if I can do it. I didn't quite reach his style, I don't think, but it was an interesting amalgam between the two, basically taking the tune and using different modal ideas outside it by way of accompaniment. I'm quite pleased with the final effect, and various organists have played it or expressed an interest in playing it, which is rather good.
And David W. Solomons is already electronically...
He's buggered off.
He's
buggered out.
Winging his way back to
Criminy.
the northwest of England after that. Didn't even have any snacks.
Yes, but we did.